So the bourbon we're going to talk about today, why has it gotten forgotten about? That is the question. We're going to tackle that today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So the bourbon that you're going to see right here, in my opinion, has completely gotten forgotten about. And today's video is more along the lines of why more so than just a flavor profile, nosing and tasting video. And I wanted to dive into this a little bit more. I saw one kind of sitting around my house the other day and saw it and got to thinking, this is a bourbon that is just simply no longer talked about and seems to have been forgotten. And my question to you is, why? So we're going to kind of tackle a little bit of that today. And again, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below as to why this Old Ezra 7-year cask strength or barrel strength bourbon has been forgotten about. So let's kind of dive into a little bit of what this thing has to offer, where it's from, really all of the details. So Old Ezra 7-year from Luxro. So the Old Ezra 7-year coming in at 117 proof. So the mash bill on this was coming in at 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. We know whose mash bill that is. That's Heaven Hills. We know Luxro, Heaven Hill have had a relationship for a lot of years. So is this going to be basically this just ramped up another 17 proof points higher and at cask strength? I don't want to discredit this or this. Are we talking about roughly the same product in a bottle just at cask strength? Again, as I mentioned, 7 years old. MSRP on this, from what I've seen, has really kind of crept up over the years. I remember this thing being introduced, or when it came out, being about 40 bucks. I've now seen this thing as high as $90. So I don't know if that has to do with why it's kind of fallen out of favor or just simply not talked about at all anymore. But we're going to kind of dive into its kind of profile and see how this bottle really kind of compares to essentially the Heaven Hill bottled and bond. I just want to get an idea of, is this potentially worth $40 more, or having two of these versus one of these? So without further ado, let's go ahead and kind of dive into this a little bit. I'll give you some of my tasting notes on the Old Ezra 7. But again, this is mainly a video of why has this fallen so far out of grace and really essentially not talked about and or forgotten. So again, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on why this is a bourbon that is simply just not talked about nearly enough anymore. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the base. So on your far left, we've got the Heaven Hill bottled and bond, 100 proof. And again, this is very tried and true. Very much oak, spice, vanillas. Again, like I mentioned, tried and true from a bourbon standpoint. So this, you know exactly what it is you're going to kind of get. But I want to kind of compare this to the Old Ezra 7 because everything is kind of the same except for the proof. So this is where I want to figure out a little bit of a value standpoint of, should I maybe have two of these versus one of these from a monetary standpoint? So let's just go into the Heaven Hill bottle and bond right now, just to kind of set up a base for us getting ready to kind of dive into the Old Ezra 7. So let me talk to you about ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic, why I use it, why I love it, why it's been an absolute game changer for me, and why I think it can be for you as well. The answer to why is simple. For me, it works. How easy is it to take? Simple. Open up the box that they send you, pull out one of the little bottles, give it a quick little shake, and down the hatch. It's as simple as that. And let the ZBiotics take over from there. So when do I use ZBiotics? Typically, I use it prior to doing any barrel picks, or if I'm going to be heading out for an evening and I know I'm going to be consuming a few alcoholic beverages. This is an easy solution. I know I'm going to feel my best and really allow me to be productive the following day. Now, a little bit more about ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to help tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough next day. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic, produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. And just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, stay properly hydrated, and you'll feel your best the following day. Now the question, how do you get it? Simple. Check out the link in the description below or use code BourbonJourney15 at checkout and save 15% off your first order. And again, make sure you check out the link in the description below for 15% off your first order. And remember, if you're unsatisfied for any reason, there's a 100% money back guaranteed, no questions asked. And a big thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring today's video. Yeah, so again, oak, spice, vanilla, hints of leather and tobacco, things like that. Again, very tried and true. Yeah, very much that Heaven Hill profile, slight nuttiness, but the nose and palate, I'll say match almost identically. So it gives you a really nice base for what it is we're about ready to taste in the Old Ezra 7-year. Again, 117 proof, same age as this guy, age stated wise. So we'll see, does that kind of translate over to the palate? Does the proof really ramp up enough to overshadow this? So again, mash bill on these two identical, 78 corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. So let's go ahead and kind of dive into what it is the Old Ezra 7-year barrel strength bourbon has to offer. So I'd say right away on the nose, I'm not getting nearly as much like oak or spice on the nose. And that's kind of interesting. One thing I'll say is I'm getting much more of a vanilla or vanilla custard on the nose for the 7-year Old Ezra at this point. You know, I'd say you do get some of those kind of like caramels and vanillas, but again, there's nothing there that is overshadowing really the Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond. So far, next to each other, they're coming across as very similar, even though there is the Old Ezra 7 that's 17 proof points higher. But ultimately, the decision that's going to factor in is going to be what the taste of this is. So let's kind of dive into that and see what the Old Ezra 7-year has to offer on the palate. Cheers. What I will say is, I think right away, the viscosity, so that extra 17 proof points, the fact that it is a barrel strength bourbon is definitely coming to the forefront. So I think you are getting some more elevated flavor profiles. The Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond, much softer. It's more creamy. This being the Old Ezra 7-year is much more aggressive. So the proof is definitely showing up in this for sure. So if you are somebody who appreciates what it is that higher proof point can do for you, you know, I'd say right away you'd probably start leaning towards the Old Ezra 7. But again, when you're starting to get into value and what you can get for the money, are we talking about a 2-for-1, you know, difference, you know, give or take? But overall, I think so far, you know, what the Old Ezra kind of has to offer, so far it's fantastic on the palate. Yeah, definitely a little bit of that kind of nutty or Heaven Hill kind of profile that it has to it. So I don't think you're going to get away from that from either one of these. I think we know exactly, you know, what this is. You know, again, at the end of the day, is the Old Ezra 7-year closer to a lesser proofed Elijah Craig barrel proof than it is this? I mean, we could go crazy in trying to compare a lot of these things, but as a comparison from a value standpoint, you know, this at, let's say $60 to $90, this at about $45, Elijah Craig barrel proofs that come out 3 times a year, fairly available at around 75 to 85 bucks. So there's some decisions to be made, but I was curious when I saw this to think, why is this a bottle that simply nobody is any longer talking about? So I think for what it has to offer, you know, closer to that $60 range, I'd feel much better for paying for that than I would be at $90. So I don't know if with that gradual price increase has been really what has been the downfall of the Old Ezra 7-year barrel strength. And maybe that is, maybe people don't want to pay $90 for that when you can get this for, let's say, 50. The Elijah Craig Barrel Proof for $75. We all know exactly what that has to offer. So again, there's a lot of factors that play into, but again, when I first saw the bottle that I hadn't seen in quite some time or hadn't even gone back to, I saw Old Ezra 7-year barrel strength. Like, why does this bottle no longer get any traction, talked about, whatever it may be? So I wanted to kind of dive into this and just do a little bit of a comparison. So if we're talking about these two bottles as a comparison and eliminating or not factoring in ECVP at all, I would say this. I think for the individual out there, if you are somebody who appreciates that higher proof in what that has to offer, then maybe the $60 to $90 price point would be worth it for you on the Old Ezra 7. But if you're somebody who just appreciates a nice, solid, everyday kind of pour, I think the Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond at, let's say, $50 starts to feel like a really, really nice value. So I'm kind of torn on this, but, really in my mind and what I really wanted to kind of, get out of this video was, why is the Old Ezra 7-year no longer talked about or kind of even forgotten? And this is not necessarily a me question. It's more of a you question. So I would love to hear your thoughts overall on, for you, why is it that you will either kind of overlook or just kind of pass on the Old Ezra 7-year? Is it availability? Is it price? Is it a combo of both? So why is that? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that overall as to why the Old Ezra 7-year barrel strength is kind of a forgotten bourbon in my mind. So with that, I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Fun topic, and I can't wait to hear and see some of the feedback and your thoughts on this overall. I appreciate you tuning in, commenting, all of that. I think this will be, again, like I mentioned before, a very interesting kind of perspective, and it'll be fun to see some of the responses in the comments below. And thank you so much for tuning in today. Greatly, greatly appreciated. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and or become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the Patreon link in the description below. That down there with a lot of other great things for you as well. So with that being said, and as always, it is about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. We'll see you in the next video.
Get out the way, I've been feeling myself, I've been trying to keep it all on track. I could tell you took your time, I've been thumbing through your ground like that. Bring my energy back, girl, you're something like the sunlight. Girl, you're something like the sunshine.